All right, everyone. Thank you for joining our webinar, Advanced Crew Tools, Best Practices and Pro Tips, Characters, Actors, Inventory, and Changes. My name is Natalie, and I am on the marketing team here at Sync on Set. I have with me my colleague Rachel from the account management team, who will be leading you through today's tutorial. Before we jump into the demo, I just want to let everyone know that to accommodate for social distancing, we are running these webinars from remote locations, so please excuse any unexpected interruptions or delays. Now let's take a look at what we're going to cover today. Today's webinar is designed for department heads, costume supervisors, coordinators, hair and makeup keys, prop masters, and set decorators, and we'll be covering characters, actors, inventory, and changes, and finally we'll recap some best practices. Now, while Rachel will be walking you through the demo today, I will be monitoring for any submitted questions, so please feel free to write in with questions as you think of them. You may submit questions by using the Q&A function located at the bottom of your screen, and we'll take some time once the demo has concluded to answer questions. And once we've finished, we will send you some resources. You will be getting a copy of today's webinar along with links to our FAQ page, some help articles, and additional videos, all which can be found at our new support site, support.synconset.com. And with that, I think I'm going to pass things over to Rachel.
Thanks, Natalie. Hey, everybody, and thanks for joining today. As Natalie mentioned, my name is Rachel, and I'll be walking us through a brief demo of Crew Tools to cover some best practices that we have for managing characters, actors, as well as inventory. So we'll start with a quick refresh of the character confirmation page. This is the first step after uploading a new script. Then we'll go ahead and dive into some more information about managing characters, actors, and inventory across an episodic season. And then lastly, we'll wrap up with some tips for our costume users, and then a short recap of the takeaways to remember after the call. So I'll go ahead and switch gears into Sync on Set.
As many of you know, Sync on Set has made some pretty substantial updates at the beginning of the year, and we wanted to take this as an opportunity to dive into some of these changes in more detail. Now, the biggest change you may have noticed with our update in January is that Crew Tools now enables users to view multiple episodes at one time. This is really based on feedback we've been able to collect over the years from our production community, as we see a more frequent request to support block shooting on episodics. So as a result of these foundational changes, it's really important to understand that characters, actors, as well as inventory now live across the entire season rather than by individual episode. So I wanted to take the next few minutes to highlight where in Crew Tools you might notice this change, as well as how to best set yourself up for success on your own production. Now, the first example I want to walk through is the character confirmation page, which comes right after we add an additional episode or upload a new script. So we'll go ahead and walk through this by adding episode 103. Now we'll still just drag and drop or select a file to upload the script. Nothing's changed there. And our next step is to confirm the characters. So for a little context, previously in Crew Tools, when characters, actors, and inventory existed at the episodic level, we had an import function that helped carry over the character information with each new episode that was added. Since characters, actors, and inventory now exist at the series level, there's really no need for us to import anything, and is why the character confirmation page is so important. Going through this correctly is really the best way to ensure that no duplicate characters are created in your production. So taking a look here, we can see that on the left-hand side of the page, we have a list of names, and this is everybody that's coming in from the script we just uploaded. On the right-hand side, we'll have a drop-down list of all of the characters we already have established in Crew Tools today. So I can just select the appropriate character to match, and that ensures all the scenes Big Head is featured in the script we just uploaded is going to be added to the Big Head character profile we already have established. So you can continue to go through this list and make sure everyone is matched correctly. And if there is a new character that or someone that isn't established yet in the account, you can just say don't link or to not have a character selected, and then give the new character a character number in the box to the left of their name. Once you've gone through and matched everyone correctly, you can go ahead and click continue. Okay, so now that our script is uploaded for 103, I am going to jump into our inventory index first to show everybody that all of the inventory I created in episodes 101 and 102 are now automatically available for me now that I'm in 103. So just like characters, there was no need for me to import any closets or carry items over from one episode to another. You can now consider this your holistic inventory list across the entire season. So just a quick example, if I were to create a blouse in episode 103, you'll notice that on this prompt, there's nowhere to specify which episode I'm in. And that's because now when you create inventory in Crew Tools, it's going to be available to you regardless of what episode you have selected. So if I switch to 102, for example, you can still see that my blouse and all of the other items on my list are still available for me. And this is really what we mean by now having inventory exist across the series level. Our goal with this was really to ensure that no duplicate items were being created. That was another major piece of feedback we received. And also to ensure that no one has to toggle back and forth between episodes anymore to try and find a particular piece of inventory. So hopefully this is a lot more functional and easier to manage across an episodic season. But I do want to chat a little bit more on characters. So let's jump into the character index. I want to point out that there are two ways to view the character list in Crew Tools now. The first is to take a look by episodes that we have selected. So right now I'm only seeing characters from 102 because that's all I have checked off in my dropdown. Otherwise, we can go ahead and click this hyperlink to view all of the characters that I've created across the entire season. And then using that episode column off to the right-hand side, we can see exactly which episodes each character is featured in. So let's say, for example, we're trying to add Monica to episode 102, and we're back in that episodic view. You'll notice that Monica is not listed on this page because she has not been added to the episode. So even if we were to search for her in the search box, it's not going to pull up anything. So it might be really easy to think that the best way to add Monica to this episode is to come over and click add. But this is actually how we create a character profile in Crew Tools. So the best way we can add Monica to episode 102 is to actually jump back into that full season character view, find her character on our list, and then using the action ellipsis off to the right-hand side, we can open just her character to edit, and then use that drop down in the episode column to add her to 102. Now if we click saved, she's added, and then if we went back into that episodic view, she'll now be available on our list. Another topic that I want to cover on the character index is a new feature, and again, one that was completely driven by feedback we received from our users, and that is the ability to manage multiple character numbers across various episodes. We have seen more frequency in circumstances where there may be reoccurring characters, not necessarily principal characters, but let's say, for example, Jin Yang is a reoccurring character, and in parentheses where his character number usually is, we see multi. That generally means that we've given them two different character numbers for different episodes. So I want to just walk through how we have the option to give Jin Yang one character number throughout the entire season, or manage them if they do fluctuate per episode. So I'm just on the character list, and I'm going to go ahead and open up Jin Yang's character by clicking the action ellipsis off to the right. And off to the left-hand side, under that box where that character number usually is, there's a gear shift icon. So if Jin Yang does have multiple character numbers, like in this example where he's 9 in episode 1 and 11 in episode 2, we can just list them here in the open text fields for each episode. This will kind of indicate to us that he has multiple character numbers. And if that is the case, I recommend that you check off the box here where it says number per episode. And what this will do is ensure that even though you're managing multiple character numbers, if I go ahead and save over here and scroll up to the top and isolate just episode 101, we'll still be able to see Jin Yang as number 9, which is exactly his character number, or the character number we allocated for him in episode 1. Same as if I were to isolate episode 102, we're going to now be able to see that he is character number 11. So you don't lose the functionality of being able to have their character numbers show. We know that's how you manage characters, is by their number. So if that is the case where they're managing multiple and you are not wanting to see multi in the parentheses, you can just make sure that you have just one episode isolated, and it will show the character number that you have listed for them. The other option that we had in this prompt that I wanted to cover is that you also have the ability to deselect this or uncheck this. And if Jin Yang just has one character number throughout all of the episodes, you can always write that in the text box here instead. And this will essentially overwrite if you have multiple character numbers below. So if I were to save 9, for example, it's going to save Jin Yang as character number 9, regardless of what episodes we have selected. So I have all 3. He'll still show up as character number 9 because we went ahead and just allocated the number 9 in that main box by his name. So definitely let us know if you guys have any questions around characters, actors, and inventory within Crew Tools. I know some of the changes we made take a little bit of getting used to. So if you do have questions after this, please feel free to give us a call, and we'd love to walk through it in more detail with you. All right, so last but not least, I want to wrap up the webinar with a couple tips for our costume teams in terms of managing change numbers. So for the last few examples, I'm going to jump to Richard Hendrick's character profile page. So this next example I want to walk through is kind of a hidden feature, but super, super important and definitely valuable. Huge time saver for our costume supervisors. And it's the ability to increment or decrement change numbers. So for this scenario, I'm on Richard's page. We're in episode 101. We're pretty well into prep. I've already got all of my change numbers established for Richard. You can see this goes through all the scenes that he's in the episode. But I just received a revision, found out that he's actually going to get added to scene 3. So now I have to essentially create a new change for Richard. So this scene is falling in between his first and second change. So essentially what I want to do is create a new change for Richard in scene 3, but I can't do that until I change the numbers I have for his additional changes. So I want to find an easy way to essentially make this number 3, move this change to 4, this to 5, and so on. So the best way we can go about doing that is to scroll down to the bottom of his character profile, and we're going to jump to his change index for the episode. So by clicking the ellipsis off to the right-hand side and editing this individual change, we'll see that this field for his second change has arrows. And if I click the up arrow, it's going to increment the numbers for me automatically. So I can go ahead and save and now have room to create a new change 2 in the system. So if I were to scroll back up to the scenes and edit scene 3 specifically, we don't have change 2, but if I go ahead and create a new change 2, it's not going to mess up any of the other changes I already had established, and the numbers will now be in sequential order. Now you can do the same thing for decrementing change numbers as well. So let's say we got another revision. He's actually taken out of scene 3. We don't need a change for him, and I want to just go back to how things were previously. If that's the case, we can go ahead and just remove the change from here. Save. Maybe we are removing him again from the scene. And we want to go back to having these in sequential order, how they were before. So the same way I incremented them, I can always go back and decrement them. So I don't need that change 2. He's actually removed from the scene. And I can go back and now I'm going to edit the change 3 and just press the down arrow to make that back to my original change 2. So hopefully a really easy, quick way for you all to be able to modify all of the change numbers if you do happen to get something, any type of revision or any need to update those. And then finally, I wanted to cover another type of scenario that I think we run into quite a bit in the costume community with changes as far as potentially needing to add a sub change. So maybe the scenario is scene 7, 8, and 9. I have Richard established as a change 4. Maybe he is going to a gala, and in scene 9 he actually ends up spilling wine on his jacket and he has to change his blazer before he runs out the door, and we need to essentially create a sub change or a change 4A to account for the new blazer that he's going to be wearing. So I can always open up that individual scene, again just with that ellipsis icon, and edit. And I don't want to do anything with my change 4. I want to keep that intact. But what I can do is essentially just create a change 4A. It will create a new change for us, but we'll essentially be able to jump into that change by clicking the hyperlink and just pull in the existing inventory pieces that we had allocated for Richard in change 4. So we can just do that by adding the existing item, pull in his pants, shirt, and then essentially the new blazer jacket that he'd be wearing. So just another kind of niche edit that you can do on the change numbers within characters to help make things just a little bit more seamless and a little easier for you all to manage.
And that really concludes the demo portion of our webinar today. So I will go jump back into our slides and do a quick recap before we head to some questions from our queue. So as a friendly reminder, we covered the character confirmation page first, but just remember to go through that really carefully as you guys add new episodes to your episodic seasons, and just make sure those characters are matched before continuing on. And then also related to characters, on the character index itself, just reminding you to always check that full season view before adding additional character profiles, just to make sure you're not re-adding the same character. And then as far as inventory is concerned, just remember that that inventory index, that's now your holistic view or your holistic list of items you create throughout the entire season. Hopefully a little easier to manage that way. And then lastly, for our costume users, that incrementing and decrementing change functionality is available from that changes table or the change index on their character view page. So always a great way to save time in the long run when adjusting change numbers. And then always remember to bookmark our Help Center. It's such a great website for resources and a way to get your questions answered really quickly. So definitely recommend keeping that on hand as well. So I think hopefully we've got quite a few questions ready to go. So we'll wait for just a few more to come in here before we get started.
All right, thank you, Rachel. And as Rachel said, we are going to give just a few more minutes to people write in with any last questions. And while you're doing that, we want to let you know that we will try to get to as many questions as we can. But if for some reason we do not get to your question, please don't worry. We are recording all of our questions and we will be sending out additional information following this webinar. So we're just going to give a few more minutes and then we'll get started.
All right, so I think it's time to start answering some of these questions. Thanks so much for writing in and submitting. There's a lot of great things that we can cover over the next few minutes. So we are getting a lot of questions kind of related to characters again. So I'm actually going to jump back into Crew Tools for this example. All right, so the first question that we have is, if you are dealing with a character, we were talking about Monica in our demo portion, but let's say that Monica has like a flashback where you go back to her as a teenager, but the main character is an adult. So how would we handle that character complexity within Crew Tools? So on your character index, I would recommend just creating two characters, one as the young version of Monica, one as the current version of Monica. The question for context as well was going to be played by two different actors, obviously. So you will want to just have a single character profile per actor that you have playing that role. So great question there. Another question, I know we kind of walked through things pretty fast in our demo, so we just have a quick question on running through how to add and remove characters from an individual episode again. This is another great one, I think, too, because it is easy to think that adding a character to an episode would be here. But again, just come down to where you can edit the characters individually, and you'll be able to see all the episodes that that character is listed in on that episode column. So if we wanted to go ahead and add, let's see, or remove Monica from 102, it would be the same way, just coming in here and editing it by that individual character. And then let's see. Can we add or remove characters from the mobile app? Great question. We cannot. You can definitely add your inventory pieces to mobile, but all character profiles will still need to be created and managed within the desktop version of our site. And then we've got another good question here about background characters. So we get a lot of questions about background characters, and this is, I think, a good thing to cover because it is handled very similarly to the way that we handle principal characters in Crew Tools. So if we wanted to actually just continue to scroll down in this character index, I'm going to jump into our background characters. So there's a full table for just your groups of background that you create. So you would be able to create new background groups here, same way as principal. And then if you wanted to go ahead and add those folks into the episodes, it's just the same way we did above as well. And then also if you do need to add characters to scenes, I know that's another question we got in. I think that might be a good one to jump into and walk through really quick. So we've added characters to episodes, we've removed them from episodes, but now let's say we had to add them to a scene in particular. So I can just jump into my scene index, to part 1. I've got a couple people in here already. I'll jump into 2. Let's see here. So in order to add another character into the scene, we would go ahead and just add existing. And this is going to pull up all of the characters that you have in the account. You can search for principal here, save, and then jump down to add your background as well. So exactly the same way we do principal, it's just going to be in a separate table towards the bottom of the page. And then let's see here. So a few questions on the incrementing and decrementing part as well. I know that's something that we can get pretty complex when you're working within Crew Tools. So let's jump back into Richard Hendrick's character page. And maybe for example, we are removing him from scenes 1 and 2. And we would need to essentially make his second change now his first change. So what we would do here is essentially he's removed from the scenes. His first scene in the episode is now going to be scene 4. Right now, we currently have that as his change 2. How would we go ahead and rectify this? So if we jump down into the bottom again, or to that changes table I was referring to, we can still see that even though we removed Richard from those 2 scenes initially where he had a change 1, that change 1 is still established. So in order for us to fluctuate the numbers or adjust those, we would need to delete or remove that change 1 we had established. And now I can go ahead and edit the next change in line, or change 2. And decrement those numbers back to having it start at 1. So I would just go ahead and remember that you can always individually edit these changes with the up arrow or the down arrow to be able to adjust those change numbers at any time. And a great follow-up question to that too that I just caught is, if you are adjusting change numbers like this and there is a new change that's added, do the items automatically come through, or would those automatically transfer to the new change that you're trying to make? So if that is the case, this change 1, let's say for example, the change 2 that we previously had a shirt, a pants, tie, and shoes in it. Those items in the previous change 2 would still be available. It's just now renamed as his change 1. So if you already have a change established and you have inventory associated to that change, nothing will happen to the change, nothing will impact it. It'll still stay as is. It will simply just change the number of what you're titling that change. But those are really, really great questions. And I think that covers all of the questions that we have for today, or the time we have for today. So I will go ahead and kick it back to Natalie for some closing remarks.
Right. Oh, thank you so much, Rachel. And thank you to everyone who wrote in with questions. It looks like there were a few that we didn't have time to get to today, but please don't worry. We will be sending out additional information following this webinar, and we really appreciate that you took the time to write in. Now, Just want to give you a follow-up that if you do think of anything outside of today's webinar, please remember that you can always write into us. You can use the chat function of our website, which will be located in the bottom right of your screen when you're logged in. You can email us at support@synconset.com, or you can give us a call. We're available Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And our support team is always available and would be happy to answer any questions that you might have. And again, we want to thank everyone for just taking the time to join us today. We really appreciate it that you are here. And for anyone who's been a longtime user of Sync on Set, we appreciate your continued support. So if you could please take a few minutes to complete our feedback survey once this webinar has concluded, we would really like to know how we did today, and if you have any feedback on how we might improve in the future. And please do remember, you can always sign up for future webinars. We launch a few of these each month, and we send out announcements. So please stay tuned for announcements of upcoming webinars. And we really hope you enjoy the rest of your day and that you found this a really beneficial information. Thanks so much, everyone.